morning everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode in my Gardening for Beginners series. In this series, I go through week by week every Monday and I focus on a different gardening topic and really take it down to the basics. The reason why I really wanted to do a series like this was because when I was just starting out gardening, I was having a really hard time finding this information, this really super basic information that I didn't have to go and, look up the definition of every single word that I saw or read about or watched in the video. So I will link my Gardening for Beginners playlist right up here. You guys can check that out. My plan is to do a video every Monday right up into the beginning of gardening season when everything is kind of in full swing. So all you new beginners out there have all the information you need to get going this year on gardening. So my topic for today, as you saw in my title, is all about dirt, really all about soil. And so I have my coffee, I have my notes, and you can see I have my jar of soil right here. And soil is actually a really important topic to gardening. Soil provides water, nutrients, and even air for the plants. That's how the plants get all those three things that they need to live. And so if there's something wrong with your soil or your soil has an issue that's making it hard for the plant to get any one of those three things, you can be, the best gardener around. You can be really diligent and weed and take care of your plants and give it fertilizer, but it's not going to thrive because there's something wrong with the soil. So knowledge is power, and really knowing what you have going on is super, super important. So if you do have non-ideal conditions for your soil, a really easy to get away with that is to make yourself raised garden beds. And that's where you see a lot of farmers, a lot of backyard gardeners, they just make themselves raised garden beds that they can put really good loamy soil in, knowing that it's going to be really great. When you landscape, when you're focusing on flowers in your yard and making your garden look beautiful, you can't put everything in a raised bed. You really have to focus on the soil that you have. And once you understand the soil that you have, you always have it. So knowledge, like I said, knowledge is power. And once you understand what you're working with, then you'll know it forevermore, as long as you're gardening on that property. There are 6 soil types that you can have. Let me see if I can remember all of them. There's sandy, clay, loamy, silty, peat, and chalky soil types. Yay, I got all 6. So we're actually going to focus on the 3 main soil types that most people have in America. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but these are the 3 main soil types here, and those include clay soil, sandy soil, and loamy soil. So how do you determine what type of soil you have? Well, the easiest way is just to go out, get a handful of soil in your hand and look at it and try and see if you can determine, knowing the 3 main soil types, if you can determine which one you have. If you take a handful of soil and it sticks together and it's really cold, you most likely have clay, a lot of clay in your soil. If it's more sandy, like beach sand, then obviously you have sandy soil. And if you have a mix of the two, it's probably more likely loamy. So loam soil is a mixture of all the soils. It's an even mixture, and it is probably the best type of soil that you can have for plant health. Plants like loamy soil the best. So as you can see, I have my jar of dirt here, and what this is for the jar test to determine what type of soil you have. And what you can do is you just take a glass jar, you fill it halfway of soil out of your garden, you fill the rest up with water, leaving about an inch of airspace, shake it up really vigorously to break up any chunks, and then leave it. Just let it sit there for 24 hours, 48 hours. You can see that this test didn't work very well for me because I have more loamy soil, and so the layers didn't divide out as they would if I had more purely clay soil or more purely sandy soil. I have kind of a mix. I have pretty good soil here, so this jar test didn't really tell me very much. I think the best way to determine the type of soil you have is actually to use the app called Soil Web. So Soil Web app is, I actually found out about it. I was working out in the front yard in the garden, and one of my neighbors was walking by, and he's retired now, but he used to be a soil scientist. And he used to go around and he used to test soil all around the world, and he'd tell me stories about the places that he used to go to. And he told me about this app that you can download. And basically it can find your location and it can tell you everything you need to know about your soil. So I have to admit, it's not the most user-friendly app. It's very scientific and a lot of scientific jargon, but it does give you the information you need. It will let you know how much clay you have in your soil. It will let you know how much sand you have in your soil. It will let you know the descriptor of your soil, whether it's well draining or not very well drained, and then it'll also tell you the pH of your soil. So there's all these test kits that you can do, and you can, mail out a soil sample and all that kind of stuff. But you could just go on this app and you can get a pretty good guesstimate of what your soil type is. So let me show you guys right now how to use it. So the first thing the app is going to do when you open it is it's going to take you straight to your own location. And you have to allow location services with this app so it's able to do that. And then what it will do is it will show you your soil series that is the largest percentage of where you're at. So you can see on the left of the screen, the YOLO series is 85% of where I'm at. And if you look on the description, it will have a lot of scientific jargon, but all you need to do is look for the keywords like well-drained soil, YOLO silt loam, and that's a good indication of what you're dealing with. So if you go back and then you click on the location and you click open GMap at this location, it's going to take you to a map. And when you look at that map, and you will see that there's these yellow lines everywhere. And the yellow lines indicate where these soil scientists have determined that different soil series are located at. You have to be zoomed in to a certain level to be able to see those yellow lines. And as soon as you can see those yellow lines, you'll see that red X, and that's where you can put right on your house. So I'm not going to put it right on my house, obviously for privacy reasons, but close to my neighborhood, you can see there's that 85% YOLO. And then you can see that there's other soil series that make up some of my soil as well, but those are all like 2% each. So looking at YOLO and looking at a little closer to it, again, I'm looking for keywords like the typical pedon, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but YOLO silt loam is the main thing that I'm looking at there. Well draining, and then I can look at acidic, or it says neutral right there on the bottom. And so then that's a good descriptor for me for my soil. Going back to the soil profiles, you can see the organic matter level, and it just decreases the deeper I get. But here I can see exactly how much clay they say I have in my soil, which is around 25%. And then if I click on the sand profile, I can see that I have almost no sand in my soil, which is pretty consistent with my experience in gardening all around this area. There's no sand, there is some clay, and then there's some other stuff as well. And then here's the pH profile, and you can see that it's pretty neutral to almost a little bit alkaline. So this has all the information that you're going to get if you send a soil sample away for a soil analysis. It has tons of information. I'm sure I don't understand 75% of what it's talking about here. What I do understand is these stacks, I guess you would call, are the different depths of the soil that they have. And so you can go and you can read through the different depths, and you can kind of see as the deeper you get how your soil is going to change. And you can see where most likely your hard pan is going to be, where it's going to be really hard for you to dig a lot deeper. And I think for me in my soil, it's around 40 inches is when the descriptors start getting not so good looking. It doesn't look so good. So that is one of the ways that I do it. And now I wanted to go through and I wanted to show you guys that even though this app was developed with UC Davis, which is the college in my town, it works for other places as well. So for instance, here's the town just north of us, Woodland, and this is the neighborhood that we used to live in. And this soil, when I gardened in this soil, the main thing that I found was the drainage was horrible, and I had no idea. But if you click on the Capay series and you start looking at the descriptor words, you can see it says poorly drained soils, right? And then if you look
in the pedon, it says silty clay. So those are indicators that you're going to be dealing with clay, poorly drained soil in this area, and you have to make sure you don't overwater it. If I click on the clay profile, I can see a much higher percentage of clay versus my home in Davis. Again, no sand and neutral to alkaline pH. So this is where I pull way back, and I want to show you guys, even going all the way across the country. I'm going to go to Florida right now. This app works really well. I can go to some random neighborhood. I have no idea where this is, over by Middleburg, Jacksonville, and I can click on a neighborhood there. And I just like I said, I randomly clicked on this neighborhood, and it brought me up to this Ortega series of soil. And so if I look at the map unit composition, I can kind of see what that is. And if I click on the description, I can look under the pedon and see that it says Ortega fine sand. And so the Ortega series consists of very deep, moderately well-drained soil. Okay, so that's kind of a good thing to see. Here you can see there's no clay and it's all sand. So you know that when you water this garden, the water is just going to drain through immediately. If I click on pH, I can see that the pH here is incredibly acidic at pH of 5. So they are going to have some trouble growing things here that don't like acidic soils. They're probably going to have nice bright blue hydrangeas, right? Because the hydrangeas are going to be happy. But it's just interesting to see the difference. So pulling back from there, one more example I want to show you guys. If you go to Texas, and I think I did Lubbock, Texas. Yeah, Lubbock, Texas. I'm just zooming in to another random neighborhood here. I zoomed in far enough to where I have the yellow lines and then the red X and then the A cuff is, is that how you say it? A cuff. And so basically this is described as loam on a nearly level plain, deep, well-drained soil. If you look at it, it has about 25% clay, about 40, 50, 60% sand, and the pH is pretty alkaline. So they're going to have to amend their soil a lot to get things to grow, especially with the deeper, as you get deeper, it gets more alkaline. So you can see it's very interesting. It works for all over the country, and I think this app is invaluable.
Okay, so you guys can see that app is, it's pretty scientific, but you just, knowing the main soil types, just pick out the words, and it should help get you guys in the right direction of the type of soil that you have in your area. So now that you know the type of soil you have, what do you do about it? Well, say you have clay soil. Clay soil is really dense, really thick, it holds onto water, and the goal for amending clay soil is to improve the drainage. You want the water to move through a little bit faster, you want to give some more air pockets so that the plants can have more access to air, and the way that you do that is you add things like pine bark, mulch, compost, to kind of loosen up the dense clay soil that you do have. So adding something like pine bark is going to break up all that really compacted soil that you have, give little air pockets, and allow the moisture to drain out. So amending with that is really great. And then the thing that you have to remember, if you have clay soil, you have to be aware of overwatering. Because obviously if you have soil that's going to tend to hold on to the water, you could easily overwater something and kill a plant with kindness by overwatering it. We lived in just the town over, it was only about 10 minutes away, and the soil there is, very dense, very clay. It did not drain well at all. And, I didn't know anything about gardening then, and my plants were suffering, and I thought, oh, they must need more water. And so I kept watering them. Then I finally realized, I was completely overwatering these plants. The water wasn't draining, and they, if you dug down 6 inches, the plants were just sitting in puddles of water because the water wouldn't drain out. Now, that would be the opposite if you lived in a place that had sandy soil, because sandy soil would have a lot of air pockets and the water would drain really, really quickly. And so you would be more at risk for underwatering your plants when you lived in a sandy soil area as compared to a clay soil area. So if you do live in an area where you have a lot of sand in your soil, the goal, if you're gonna amend that soil, is to improve water retention. As opposed to clay soil, you want to improve drainage. With sandy soil, you want to improve water retention. So for that, you want to add manure and compost. And again, you want to be aware of how quickly the water and then the nutrients that go along with it are going to drain out. So you're probably going to have to add more organic matter, more water, more fertilizer, all that kind of stuff if you have sandy soil. I'm not very familiar with sandy soil because I have more loamy, it's called silty loam soil, as you saw, when I showed you the app, and even lends itself to a little bit more clay. So I'm used to dealing with clay soil rather than sandy soil here where I live. So if you do have loamy soil like I do, the main amendment you want to add to that is organic matter, which would be compost. And that would just, add really good bugs, really good nutrients into the soil and keep things nice and healthy. So again, loamy soil is probably the best, the most ideal soil that you can have, but you can always improve the quality of your soil. So hopefully that gives you guys a good idea. You can go on, go out, do the jar test, do the handful test, or go on the Soil Web app, get a good idea of what type of soil you most likely have in your garden, and then what amendments you can add to it just to improve it, depending on what type of soil you have. So the other thing the Soil Web app I think is really helpful with is that it tells you the pH of the soil in your area. And pH, it tells you how acidic or how alkaline your soil is. And plants tend to like a pH around 6.5 to 7, so pretty neutral of a pH in the soil, and that's because that's where nutrients and minerals, it thrives in that neutral pH. So if you have soil that's too alkaline, your pH is too high, or too acidic, your pH is too low, you're gonna have issues as well because the plant's not gonna be able to take up as much nutrients as you want. So if you look on that Soil Web app, it will tell you what your pH is. My pH here is neutral to a little bit of alkaline, and so I can always amend it for that. If I have a plant that's acid loving, like camellias or hydrangeas, then obviously I want to amend my soil with soil acidifier or something like sulfur that will lower the pH of my soil and make it more acidic. And then the opposite is true if you live somewhere like Florida, like I showed you, where the pH is very, very low, it's very acidic, and then you want to bring up the pH a little bit to make it closer to neutral, closer to 6.5, 7. And to do that, you can add stuff like lime. I had to look that up because I never add lime to my soil. So for alkaline soils, you want to add sulfur or soil acidifier. For acidic soils, you want to add lime. So I hoped this helped you guys get a little better grasp on soil types and soil pH and then what you can do about it. Again, the app is not very pretty, it's very scientific, but if you know what you're looking for, it gives you the best information. And once you know that information about your garden, you have it forever. And if you're looking at a plant and you're thinking, why is that plant not doing well? I've watered it, I've done this, I've given it food, and it's still not doing well. Maybe it's the soil. Maybe the soil needs a little bit of amending. So like I said, I think knowledge is power. I think it's really helpful. It's something even beginners need to know is what type of soil they have. And I think that this app will really help you guys. All right, so that's it for the video today on soil. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a dry subject, but it's super important. If you guys enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned next week when I talk about how I fertilize my plants. And I hope to see you all in another video very soon. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and I hope you guys get a chance to garden today. There are 6 main soil types. Wait, shush! You guys! This is ridiculous!
Can you work on these?
I can't work on these.